This is the Bates Bobcast, our weekly podcast where we take a look at the week that was in Bates athletics. My name is Aaron Morse, and each week this spring we will be honoring the seniors of a Bates team that did not get to finish its season due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This week, we chat with the three senior captains from the women's lacrosse team, plus an interview with head coach Brett Allen. That's coming up on the Bates Bobcast. The Bates women's lacrosse team defeated the University of Southern Maine 20-1 on Tuesday, March 10 at Garcelon Field. The victory turned out to be the final home game of the Bates athletics spring season. The 6 women's lacrosse seniors had a feeling this could be it entering the contest. So the Bobcats held a makeshift senior day. This week on the Bobcast, we're joined by senior captains Kerrigan, Avery MacMullen, and Liv Sandford as we look back on that afternoon and their times at Bates.
Caroline, what was that like for you approaching that game and knowing that that might be the last one as it turned out to be, for the team and everything?
It was definitely kind of a surreal feeling for us. I mean, we all kind of had this underlying feeling that it was our last game, but we were also kind of in denial too. We were thinking that we'd maybe be able to squeeze in a game with Bowdoin or Colby or someone close in Maine. So we were just kind of approaching it as like, if this is our last time, let's just go out there and have so much fun and just be appreciative of each other from like the locker room onto the field and just throughout the whole game. We were really appreciative of each other in those moments.
And Avery, it seemed like everyone, obviously it was an overwhelming victory for the Bobcats. I mean, what did you get the sense of, the team that day?
I thought that the whole team had so much fun in that game. Brett definitely kept the seniors in for most of the time, but I thought watching the underclassmen take over the game at the end was a really awesome rite of passage for them and a chance for the seniors to kind of see what's coming down the line. And I think everyone left feeling so positive despite the fact that it was a really sad moment.
Certainly, and you touched on, the seniors. There's 6 of them this year for the women's lacrosse team. Liv, I was curious, as a whole, the senior group, what has this group been like over the past few years in terms of the dynamic between each other and getting to know each other during your times at Bates?
I think our class as seniors, we've had a really special dynamic because we've all been so close. Our grade has always tried to keep things light and have fun with it while also staying really focused. And I think in the USM game, it kind of just showed our class really went out there just trying to leave it all out and have the best time that we could. And we leaned on the underclassmen for that. And so I think, I don't know, it was just going out on the USM game, I think made sense for our class just because we were having so much fun, and that's what we've always kind of focused on.
Caroline, I'm curious, what are some games that stand out that you'll remember, maybe you think 10 years down the road from your time at Bates that really, you'll hold on to in terms of good memories here as a Bobcat?
I think every game there is a special memory that I hold from each game that I've played at Bates. Definitely my first collegiate game sticks out to me too. Just kind of being welcomed into this collegiate arena was really a special moment for me. And another win that really sticks out to me was our Middlebury game last year. That was a huge team win for us. We were Middlebury's only loss last season, and that was definitely a really special moment for us. It showed how hard we worked. And then I would definitely say that our Occidental game is also a game that really sticks out to me too, because even though it wasn't an outcome that we wanted, we came back from it more focused and stronger than ever. And I think that showed in our last few games that we played together as a team.
Great. Avery, how about for you, some memorable games over the past few years? I remember when you were first year, you had that dramatic goal against Williams, send that game to overtime. But what are some other games that also stand out, perhaps?
I always think of our first NESCAC game, our first year, which was against Wesleyan. And it was at Wesleyan, and it went into overtime. And I just remember kind of being overwhelmed by it all as we walked onto the field and then getting there and having it be such a team game. And even though that outcome wasn't a win, I remember thinking okay, this is what NESCAC lacrosse is going to be like. We're going to go into overtime. We're going to have these exciting games, and we're never going to know what's going to happen.
Great. Liv, how about for you?
Yeah, I definitely think the Wesleyan game my freshman year stood out for me, just because that was the first time I saw the level of play that was in the NESCAC, and it was exciting just to see like what was ahead and how far we could grow as a team, even though we didn't get that win. And then the Middlebury game last year, just beating them, and I think that was a huge turning point for our team. It gave us the confidence that we needed because I think at the time we didn't know how good we could be, and I think that game just stands out for me as like a turning point in, I guess, the program in general in the 4 years that I've been here.
Yeah, that Middlebury game, I mean, last year, you all touched on it, kind of the only loss the Panthers ended up having that whole season. Caroline, take us back to that game. Give us an idea of what was so successful for Bates in that contest. Obviously, winning on the road is difficult no matter what, but especially when, it's a team that went on to win the national title that year.
Yeah, we definitely came into that game with kind of a who cares attitude. We knew that we were the underdogs coming in. We knew that everyone expected us to lose. So we just kind of went into the game with a why not attitude. So we just played our hardest for the entire game. And then I just also remember in one of the timeouts when we were up, or we were tied, I think, and the game was about to end, and Brett called a timeout, and I just remember him saying to us, are you guys having a lot of fun? And we were just having so much fun in those moments. And we were playing the most competitive lacrosse we had played so far that season. And I think that goes hand in hand with just how much fun we had too on the field. We were a really close and strong group in that moment.
Great. Avery, I'm curious, being one of the captains with Caroline and Liv, what that experience was like for you this year in terms of having that leadership role. What did it mean to you to be one of those captains?
It was definitely an honor and a privilege to be one of the captains. I think as Liv touched on earlier, our senior class, the 6 of us that made it through all 4 years, were so close that having 3 of us be captains didn't really distinguish all the leaders on the team. 6 of us worked together as a unit. So even though Caroline, Liv, and I were the named leaders, we worked together as a unit of 6 to plan practices, motivate the team, and try and lead by example and show the other classes what we wanted Bates Lacrosse to be.
Certainly. And Liv, I was talking with Brett Allen yesterday about the senior class, and it seems like a lot of the seniors had different roles coming in than they ended up having when they finished up. I mean, for you, I know as a sophomore you had 10 goals. Last year you were asked to play more of a defensive role and obviously got named all-region. What was it like for you to have a different role, maybe later in your career than you did early on here at Bates perhaps?
Yeah, I think it was definitely interesting playing so many different roles on the team. I've played attack, defense, and midfield now by the time I'm leaving. I think it helped me a lot as a player. I got to understand a lot of different parts of the game, but it helped to, bridge some gaps for me, understanding where people are at mentally playing different positions. And I think you grow closer when you play certain positions with certain people, and I think I got to grow a lot of different relationships playing with different players, which I'm really thankful for.
And Caroline, you started from day one here at Bates. You started every game. What was it like as a first year immediately being inserted in the starting lineup like that?
Yeah, it was definitely a huge honor to be put in that position right out the gate. I'm definitely thankful for it. It was definitely kind of surreal. I was just super thankful, especially as an underclassman, to get those opportunities and just kind of learn from the upperclassmen on the field and get a really good feel of what competitive NESCAC lacrosse is like. And I made sure to keep that competitive edge throughout my time so that I could just kind of carry that legacy that I learned from the upperclassmen.
Avery, what would you say to someone coming into the program about what is crucial to succeed at Bates, both on the field for women's lacrosse and also, off the field in the classroom, in your opinion?
I think one big thing our team talks about is accountability and buying in. So the idea that even if you might not understand the reasoning behind every choice, or if you kind of have your own idea how to do things, when you get to Bates, you learn the Bates Lacrosse way. And you follow that and you join with your teammates. And that also happens in the classroom where if you need help, anyone from your team or anyone from the campus can help you. And as long as you buy in and put the time in and are honest with yourself, then you're able to succeed at Bates.
Great. And Liv, obviously being from Maine, being from Kennebunk, what was it like going to college, these past few years in your home state, maybe a little bit north of where you grew up, but certainly, not too far away from home?
I loved going to school so close. I thought it was really great because my family was able to come see me play a lot, and even in the off season I was able to see them. They would make trips up. I could come home. The weather, being in Maine, was obviously a factor, but I was used to it, so it wasn't as bad, but I enjoyed being close to home.
Great. Caroline, you came from a little bit farther away, Falls Church, Virginia, where you grew up. Take us back to high school. What attracted you to come up north to college to Bates?
Well, Bates was kind of, I wouldn't say a last-minute decision, but I hadn't really thought about playing at Bates until kind of the end of my junior year of high school. I come from, a pretty competitive area of lacrosse, being from the Mid-Atlantic, so I knew I wanted something competitive, and I knew that's what the NESCAC had to offer. And just, initially talking to Brett in those first recruiting steps, he was everything I wanted in a coach and as someone to help me develop as a player and as a person. And then just visiting Bates in the summer, I just immediately fell in love with it. It's such a close-knit community, and I could just really envision myself being at Bates and playing for the Bobcast.
Yeah, Avery, give us a little some insight into Brett as a head coach. What's his style like? What's it's been like, playing for him these past few years?
I agree with Caroline that Brett was a big pull for me to go to Bates. He's definitely more casual than other coaches, but in a really beneficial way.
Yeah.
You obviously know Brett. Everyone at Bates knows Brett because he talks to everyone in Commons. But he definitely leads our team from a position of support, and he always says that he has 3 sons, but we're all of his daughters. And I think that benefits our lacrosse playing, that he cares about us so much as people. And he likes to joke with us, but then he likes to be serious when he needs to be. I know Liv and Caroline would agree there's been some games where he's kind of been unexpected and yelled at us, but it's been the right motivation that we needed at the time. And I think his coaching style is designed to, really adjust to how we're feeling day to day, and I think it gets the most out of us as players.
And Liv, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think did you play for him at a club level at some point? I think you might have.
Yeah, I did in high school.
Yeah, so what was that like compared to playing for him in college?
Well, I was looking at Bates towards the end of my high school career, and so I kind of tried to keep things a little bit more professional with him, hoping that he would recruit me. I think it's funny, when I got to Bates, I came in as a freshman and I was still trying to be really serious, trying to earn my spot, and I think everyone kind of comes in that way. And I think what's funny about Brett is everyone kind of develops a different relationship with him, and that really grows and progresses as you go on. And it's funny how casual he is and the kind of jokes that people throw around with him, but he is more serious in college. He cares a lot. He becomes really passionate at times during games, which I didn't see a lot during my club years. But, yeah, the progression has been interesting. Brett and I have gone way back.
Caroline, any other thoughts on your time at Bates and we haven't talked about that you wanted to mention?
I guess I just want to say thank you, I suppose, to Bates and especially my lacrosse family in general. I've been really appreciative to play lacrosse with 5 other incredible seniors that I love so much and have been so close with since freshman year. And I think the community of Bates in general, I've always felt supported. I've always felt like I had someone in my corner cheering me on, on the field, off the field. And I'm forever grateful for that community feel and just having someone kind of root for me, and that someone being just Bates in general.
Great. How about for you, Avery? Any other final thoughts?
I totally agree with everything Caroline said. Just thanking the school and the program for everything we've been able to get out of it. It's definitely defined my Bates experience to be a member of the women's lacrosse team, and I wouldn't change anything for the world.
Excellent. Liv, you get the last word.
Carol and Avery really nailed it. I feel so similar to everything they said. I kind of just want to give all of our underclassmen a shout-out, I guess. As the seniors, we really tried to, lean and lead this team and support them all season. And then in that last week when everything was getting canceled, we really turned back to them, and they were really our support system and giving us everything that we needed, and I just want to give them a huge shout-out and thank them, like, so much for that.
Liv Sandford, Avery MacMullen, Caroline Kerrigan, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the Bobcast, and congrats on great careers here at Bates. Appreciate it.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Bates women's lacrosse head coach Brett Allen joins us this week as well to look back on the Bobcats' abbreviated season and to talk about each of the 6 seniors and what they mean to the program.
Obviously, in the middle of March, things started to really move pretty quickly from a national perspective with the COVID-19 virus. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I just had a gut sense that the Tuesday we were scheduled to play USM was very likely going to be our last game. I had already had confirmation that we weren't going to be playing Amherst that Saturday, and Amherst, Tufts, and Middlebury had just made decisions that day or the previous day to suspend the remainder of their on-campus learning and, cut short the spring season. So I just kind of figured that we had the opportunity. We might as well make the most of it and, do our best to create a makeshift senior day on short notice.
How did your players kind of handle the whole situation from your perspective? Because obviously, we've used this word a lot, but unprecedented. How did you see them go about what they had to do on a day that felt kind of weird for everyone?
It ran the gamut of emotions, to be quite honest. There were kids that were in shock. There were kids that were sad. There were some kids that were in disbelief. I don't think anybody was angry at the moment because there was still so much uncertainty about whether or not our season would be able to continue. But whenever you can sort of predict that there's going to be some bad news coming or news that you're not expecting coming, I think you react different ways. And, we just tried to really communicate well with our kids about the possibility of the season being cut short, and to try and just make the most of the time that we have together because we can't control what's coming. So it was just a matter of really sticking together, making the most of that moment, and trying to create a great experience for our seniors on potentially their last game day.
So let's talk about the 6 seniors, starting, alphabetical order, maybe starting with Gianna DePinto out of Grafton, Massachusetts, an attacker, worked her way into the starting lineup last year a bit, started a few games this year as well. Tell us about her development as a player, kind of emerging as a good resource for you the last couple of seasons.
Sure. We actually used Gianna a lot the last couple of years as a draw specialist, and she really had come to Bates as a high school midfielder, took a lot of draws for her high school team, and then early on in her career, we had some other midfielders who really did a nice job on the circle for us and taking draws. But then as those kids kind of graduated and, left the program, we had a void to fill. And she really embraced that opportunity to step into that role and really put a lot of time and effort into developing into somebody that we could rely on for draws. She was also somebody who I think, we always talk about how kids develop on the field and as players, but, as a person and as a teammate and as somebody who had really evolved into an unspoken leader or a leader behind the scenes, like she was just all for the team as she became a junior and senior. And, I think for us as coaches, you want that for all of your older players, regardless of what their role is on the field. But it was really great to see her sort of, jump into that role as well as she got older. So, I think her presence, honestly, is one that we're going to miss a lot because of all the little things she was doing with her teammates behind the scenes as far as having conversations and, how to prepare and things like that.
And then Olivia Harwood, someone who had started a couple games this year after seeing some more action last season, also the junior on defense. What did she bring to the program?
Liv was also a high school midfielder who, really jumped in as a freshman. We weren't real sure what position she was going to play initially, like a lot of kids when they get there, because you just don't know how they're going to compare to their teammates at Bates. And, as she got older, she was actually in a really good position last year to contribute, but then suffered some sickness and actually was diagnosed with mono about 3 weeks left in the season. So that was a little bit of a bummer for sure for her last year. And then this year, she had worked so hard in the off season to prepare and to be as ready as possible to step into a pretty important role on the field. And, you know, we were so excited for how her season started, and really, you know, I think we could see the time and the effort that she put in making a difference and being in a position to be a much more significant contributor. So it was really cool to see, you know, and I think, like I said with Gianna as well, you know, she was always somebody who was super supportive of her teammates regardless of what her role was. And, you know, I think kids like that, whether they, you know, end up impacting you on the field as greatly as as they want, are super, super valuable. So she's going to be, you know, missed extremely greatly.
Yeah, speaking of making an impact, senior captain Caroline Kerrigan started every game that she had an opportunity to. She played and started in every single game in her career as a Bobcat. 15 as a first year, 15 as a sophomore, 16 last year, then 5 this year before the season got cut short. She caused turnovers. She picked up ground balls. She did everything out of Falls Church, Virginia. First of all, how did you get her to come to Bates? And then, obviously, what can you say about the fact that she started every single game as a Bobcat?
You know, I think recruiting is a little bit of a crapshoot, of course, when you're communicating with, you know, hundreds of kids about the possibility of, you know, playing at your school and attending your school. Caroline was somebody who was referred to me by a club coach who was a Bates alum who works for a club down in the Northern Virginia, D.C. area. And, you know, I was at tournaments where her club was playing, saw her play, and she went to a very good school in the D.C. area called Georgetown Visitation, which, you know, typically sends a lot of kids to NESCAC and Ivy and small liberal arts colleges. And so, you know, when we had the initial conversation about, you know, considering Bates, it was certainly something that she was, you know, she felt was worth looking at, just because, you know, those were the types of schools that I think she had already sort of targeted. And as it turned out, she thought it was a great fit. You know, she's going to graduate with an economics degree, and, you know, she's already got a job lined up. So I think it's been mutually beneficial because, as you mentioned, she's certainly been a significant contributor to our program since she arrived. You know, the fact that she started every game since she showed up as a freshman is, to me, I think, just a tribute to how consistent she's been and consistently good at a really competitive level of play. You know, defenders are kids that you really only notice unless they make a mistake most of the time. And she was a kid that we noticed, you know, from the get-go as being somebody who always played with the same intensity, always was in good position, and always was really a great communicator with her teammates, whether it was receiving feedback or, as she got older, starting to give more feedback and give input. So, yeah, it was certainly something that when I first recruited her, I would have predicted, because you just don't know how kids are going to pan out until they get to Bates. But, you know, she's somebody that definitely impacted us greatly.
And then Avery MacMullen, another senior captain. I remember when she was a first year, she had that dramatic goal to force overtime in a game the Bobcats eventually won against Williams. And then she went on to become, you know, a team captain, one of your top options on the attack. What can you say about what she's meant over the past few years?
Just her ability to play at a consistently high level. And then I think the other thing is, and I talked a little bit about this with mistakes, but, you know, as an offensive player, even though she wasn't always our highest scorer or somebody that was our leading scorer in every game, she was always in the right position to make the right play. And I think on offense, sometimes that gets overlooked a little bit, because you have kids who, you know, get all the glory, if you will, because they score all the goals and get all the assists. But then you also need kids that can sort of, like in hockey, make the second assist, the pass that leads to the pass that leads to the goal. And, you know, I think if we were tracking that statistic, probably Avery would have a lot more points. But she was also somebody, because emotionally she was always so balanced, that I think her teammates really felt like she was a super calming presence for them when she was on the field. And so to see her evolve and grow from first year where she was playing a little nervous and sporadic because she was surrounded by older kids to obviously sophomore, junior, and the shortened senior year, somebody who was a leader on the field was really cool to see. And, I thought she had a great career here. So be a bummer that she didn't get to play out her senior season, but she made the most of what she had for sure.
And then Isabel Paulus, as we move into the pair of Mainers in this senior class. Isabel Paulus from Bath, Maine, went to Morse High School. She's someone who, played a little bit her first 2 years and then started every game last season on defense. So on defense along with Caroline Kerrigan, but Isabel Paulus, another impact player, and was starting every game so far this season. So it seems like she kind of really figured things out, the past couple years here.
I made the comment earlier about a couple of kids about how they came to Bates as midfielders, and certainly that was the case with Isabel. Her freshman year, she was still recovering a little bit from an ACL injury that she had suffered during her high school career, so she wasn't quite at 100% yet. We didn't know what position she was going to be. And, for a lot of kids when they show up as first years, it's really just a matter of, getting used to the environment you're in now from a competitive perspective, a team perspective, et cetera. And, I think she's one of those kids who watches and picks things up quick and asks questions. And, even though she wasn't playing very much as a freshman or as a sophomore, she was learning and watching and, really readying herself to sort of step into some roles as kids graduated when she became a junior. And, I think the other thing that helped was when she did play as a freshman and sophomore, we were using her as a midfielder to try and see what her best position would be. And I think ultimately we decided as we prepared for her junior year and the start of the 2019 season that she was going to help us the most as a defender. She's got great size. She's got very good speed. She's a loud voice, which is important on defense. And so she was somebody who, as kids started to graduate, she really sort of stepped right into a role and took to it very well. So, she did a really nice job as she got older of sort of evolving as a player in person for sure.
Well, it seems like one of the themes of the senior class is adjusting to new roles, and Liv Sandford did that really well. Out of Kennebunk, senior captain this year. Last season she was second team all-region, just an outstanding year. But she had scored 10 goals a year before, but last year you asked her to do something different on defense more so, and it worked out in a big way, didn't it?
Yeah, so I think Liv was probably, if I rewind back to sort of, the recruiting process, the one person who, as I looked at our roster when she was coming in as a freshman, the one person who I thought might have the ability to contribute as early as anybody else. And that certainly held true. She played a little bit as a midfielder her freshman year. She'd been a midfielder in high school, albeit somebody that I think we saw as a true defender in college. But as our needs sort of played out, she definitely ended up helping us as a midfielder. And then last year, she was primarily a defender because what we were doing was obviously running some lines of midfielders and attackers on and off the field almost every possession. And so when she really got to play just as a defender, I think we could see how strong of a player she was at that position. And that kind of comes with the recognition that she received. I think this year we were certainly early in the season, but it was very likely that she was, either going to be playing a mix of midfield and defense or potentially just one or the other as the season played on. But either way, she was going to be on the field for us because as a leader and as somebody who just has a motor that doesn't quit and performs at a high level, she was somebody that, obviously our team looked to provide some stability and make some plays and, things like that. So, certainly she had a huge impact on our program over her 4 years. And, it was cool to see her get recognized a little bit for that last year by some folks outside our program.
Certainly. So overall, the senior class, what are some characteristics about these 6 seniors that really stand out to you, just in terms of what they've met? I think every senior class has its own kind of personality, its own impact. What can you say about these 6 as a unit?
Well, I think that, as a whole, and, obviously I could use a lot of different words to describe them. But I think as they were finishing this season or getting ready to finish this season before everything kind of hit, I was so proud of how unified the six of them were with the message that they were sharing to the team and to their younger teammates. I was proud of how they were leading by example. I was proud of how they were all communicating with different kids, because leadership isn't just something that your captains do and, or maybe one of your captains does because she's more vocal or more comfortable talking to kids. It's something that you need sort of a group of people to really do. And I think these six kids really believed and bought into the same vision. And so it was really exciting to sort of prepare for the season and have, a few conversations with them as we were, doing our conditioning and, January and February, and, just to see their excitement and to hear how pumped they were to get started was really, really cool. And, obviously that doesn't mean that other classes before or after won't feel the same way. But, I think when you're a senior, it's just tough to be focused collectively as a group because it's your last season and, everybody wants to do their best as an individual, but then sometimes you get caught looking ahead to what's after graduation because that's a really scary thing. And so to see this group really be focused on the season and their team was really cool.
Next time on the Bates Bobcast, we'll salute our seniors from the men's lacrosse program, which has dealt with a lot this spring beyond just the season's cancellation. That's next time on the Bates Bobcast.
Bates, my champion.